And the next thing they both did was they both waited for God's timing. We need to wait for God's timing. Sometimes we want to, we see Jesus doing something and we just want to jump in with both feet and say, but I want to be part of that too. But in order for Peter to experience that water walking experience, he had to wait. He had to ask God, if it's you, command me and I will come out of the boat. Could you imagine what that must have felt like, that first step? You're putting your foot on the boat and kind of waiting for your foot to go through the water. And knowing, okay, I actually have to get out of the boat in order for the water to catch me. Remember, this is not a peaceful day when things are, no, this is waves going. And so you couldn't even, it's not like a piece of glass, when water gets to almost like glass, you just kind of step on it. No, the waves were going, and he had to step out in that. But he had to wait for God's timing. Job, he could have been so discouraged by what was happening with him. But what did he do? He sat down, and he mourned, and he waited for God's timing. It's okay to mourn. It's okay to feel bad about what's happened, but knowing that eventually God is going to be there for us. We have to wait for his timing. It might not look the way we want it to look, but he'll eventually come through for us. Because he says in his word, he will not forsake us. He won't. We just don't know necessarily what it looks like. The next thing that I noticed that both of them did was they lived their experience. They lived that experience that they were in. The other guys in the boat with Peter, they observed from a distance. And I bet you they thought, wonder what that would have been like. But I wonder if they would have said, Jesus, command us. Command me. Think he would have? I think so. I think Jesus just sometimes waits for us to ask. We can all have opportunities. We can all have experiences. We can all be involved. But sometimes we need to ask God to call us out. Live that experience that God puts you in. If you are in a situation where life is like Job, where everything's crashing down and it seems horrible and you have no idea what tomorrow is going to bring, live that experience. You may never go through that again, or you may go through it 78,000 more times. But live the experience that you're in at that moment. Because in that moment, when the world seems like it's crashing down and there's nothing that you can do to make a difference, that there's nothing. I can't. My checkbook is empty. My wife or my husband, they've left me. Whatever the situation is, that's where you're at. And that's where God's going to show up. It's okay if your life doesn't look like somebody else's life, the perfect Christian life, which there is none, by the way, because we all have trials. We all go through things. So if you're in that place where you're like Job, let yourself mourn, that's okay. But don't give up on God, realizing that he has not left you. If you've lost a ton of money in the stock market, God knows it. He's still for you. He's going to take care of your needs. If your job is in question, God knows that. He is going to provide. But we have to live the moment that we're in. And we can't regret, I should have done this, and if I would have known this was going to happen, I would. You can just pickle yourself doing that. Learn from mistakes we've made, but then go on. Live the experience that you're in. And then what both Peter and Job both did was they trusted God no matter what. Peter trusted Jesus enough to take that step out of the boat. Job trusted God enough to say, you give, you take away. He trusted him in his circumstances. Job trusted God even though his wife was telling him to curse God and die. By the way, if you're married, don't do that. You need to encourage your spouse, always. Keep that connection. Trust God no matter what that situation is that you're in. Trust him that it's going to be okay. If you're in school and you're dealing with whatever that is, in my family, my son has announced that he wants to move away and go to school. And gosh, as a mom, that's like, oh, God, help us. But at the same time, it's like I need to trust God no matter what. Because I know God's in control. Because God loves my son way more than I do. And I can't even imagine that. But he does. And number 5 is believe, regardless of the circumstances. When Peter was walking on the water and he saw this, he was fine. Did you notice that? He was fine until he looked down and he saw the circumstances he was in. And then he started to sink. We need to believe regardless of what it looks like around us. Because the minute he took his eyes off Jesus, he started to sink.